The pen was inches from the paper when Sophia crashed into Gabriel like a hurricane, sending contracts flying through the air like confetti. Her coffee-stained blouse pressed against his expensive suit as she grabbed his arm, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered urgently, "It's a trap. Don't sign." Time seemed to freeze in that moment. Gabriel's dark eyes locked with hers, and something electric passed between them, something that had nothing to do with the chaos surrounding them and everything to do with the fearless woman who had just risked everything to save him. But let me tell you how we got here, because this story didn't start with Sophia being brave. It started with her being the clumsiest person Gabriel had ever met. 3 months earlier, Gabriel Moretti sat behind his mahogany desk in the 42nd floor of Moretti Enterprises, watching the city sprawl beneath him. To everyone else, he was a successful businessman who had built an empire from construction and real estate. What they didn't know was that his family had roots that ran much deeper and darker than anyone suspected. Gabriel had spent years trying to make his business completely legitimate, but old habits and family connections died hard. He needed someone he could trust completely, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions, but would be loyal beyond measure. That's when Sophia Mitchell walked into his life. Actually, she didn't walk, she stumbled. The interview had been going terribly from the moment she knocked over the water pitcher in the waiting room. By the time she made it to Gabriel's office, her resume was crumbled, her hair was a mess, and she had somehow managed to get ink stains on her fingers. "Miss Mitchell," Gabriel had said, trying not to smile as she fumbled with her papers, "tell me why you want this job." Sophia had looked up at him with those bright green eyes, completely flustered. "Honestly, I need the money. My last boss fired me for accidentally sending his personal emails to the entire company, and my rent is due next week." Most people would have lied, given him some rehearsed answer about career goals and professional development, but Sophia just told him the truth, even when it made her look bad. "And what makes you think you'd be good at this job?" Gabriel had asked, genuinely curious now. Sophia had straightened up, and for a moment her clumsiness disappeared. "Because I pay attention to details that other people miss. I notice when numbers don't add up, when people are lying, when something doesn't feel right. I might spill coffee on important documents, but I'll also catch the mistake that could cost you millions." There it was, that spark of intelligence that cut through all the chaos. Gabriel hired her on the spot. The first few weeks had been exactly what he expected. Sophia managed to accidentally delete important files, got lost in the building at least twice a day, and once somehow locked herself in the supply closet for 3 hours. But she also caught an accounting error that would have cost the company $50,000, and she had an uncanny ability to read people that impressed even Gabriel. More than that, she made him laugh. In a world where everyone was afraid of him, where every conversation was calculated and careful, Sophia was refreshingly honest. She would argue with him about business decisions, tell him when she thought he was wrong, and somehow make even the most stressful days bearable. Gabriel found himself looking forward to her daily disasters, to the way she would bite her lip when she was concentrating, to her infectious laugh when she realized she had done something ridiculous again. He was falling for his clumsy secretary, and he hadn't even realized it until that moment when she crashed into him. Now, as papers settled around them like snow and the Hoffman Group representatives stared in shock, Gabriel understood that Sophia had just saved him from something terrible. The way she was looking at him, desperate and determined, told him that whatever she had discovered was serious. "Mr. Moretti," Gerald Hoffman impatiently said, straightening his tie, "perhaps we could continue with the signing. I'm sure your secretary can clean up this mess later." But Gabriel wasn't looking at Hoffman anymore. He was looking at Sophia, who was still pressed against him, her heart beating so fast he could feel it through her blouse. In her eyes, he saw fear, determination, and something else that made his breath catch. "Actually," Gabriel said slowly, never breaking eye contact with Sophia, "I think we need to postpone this meeting." 3 months earlier, Sophia Mitchell stood outside the gleaming glass tower of Moretti Enterprises, clutching her worn leather portfolio and trying to calm her nerves. She had exactly $17 in her checking account. Her landlord was threatening eviction, and this was her last chance at a decent job. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending to heaven, if heaven had marble floors and intimidating security guards. Sophia checked her reflection in the polished doors, smoothing down her second-hand blazer and hoping the small coffee stain near the hem wasn't too noticeable. "Miss Mitchell?" A stern-looking woman with silver hair appeared. "Mr. Moretti will see you now." Sophia followed her down a hallway lined with expensive artwork, her heels clicking nervously on the marble. She had researched Gabriel Moretti extensively the night before, learning about his meteoric rise in the construction industry, his reputation for being brilliant but ruthless, and the whispered rumors about his family's mysterious past. What she hadn't prepared for was how intimidating he would be in person. Gabriel sat behind a desk that probably cost more than Sophia's annual salary, his dark hair perfectly styled, his charcoal suit tailored to perfection. When he looked up at her with those intense brown eyes, Sophia felt her carefully rehearsed introduction evaporate from her mind. "Please, sit." His voice smooth and commanding. Sophia moved toward the chair and promptly knocked over the small glass of water that had been placed on the side table. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." She lunged forward to catch it, but only succeeded in sending her portfolio flying, papers scattering across his pristine office floor. Gabriel watched this chaos unfold with an expression Sophia couldn't read. She dropped to her knees, frantically gathering her documents, her face burning with embarrassment. "Leave it," Gabriel said quietly. "My assistant will handle it later." Sophia straightened up, clutching her crumpled papers, wanting nothing more than to disappear through the floor. "I'm really not usually this clumsy. Well, actually I am, but not this bad. I am this bad, but I'm also really good at other things." To her surprise, Gabriel's lips switched slightly, as if he was fighting a smile. "What other things?" "I notice everything," Sophia said, her honesty taking over her embarrassment. "Like how your assistant has been working here for at least 5 years based on the family photos on her desk, but she's looking for a new job because she keeps checking employment websites when she thinks no one is watching. And your security guard downstairs is left-handed, but carries his weapon on his right side, which means he's probably not as experienced as he wants people to think." Gabriel leaned back in his chair, studying her with new interest. "You gathered all that in the 10 minutes you've been in this building?" 12 minutes. I was early, so I sat in the lobby for a while. Also, your coffee machine in the waiting area needs descaling, and whoever designed your filing system has never actually had to find anything quickly." This time, Gabriel did smile, and Sophia felt her heart skip a beat. When he wasn't being intimidating, he was devastatingly handsome. "Tell me about your previous job." Sophia's sighs sagged. "I was an administrative assistant at Henderson Marketing. I lasted 8 months, which is actually a record for me. I got fired for accidentally forwarding my boss's personal emails to the entire client list." "Accidentally?" Sophia hesitated, then decided honesty had gotten her this far. "He was having an affair with his business partner's wife, and he was using company email to coordinate their meetings. I thought the clients should know what kind of person they were trusting with their marketing campaigns." Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, and Sophia was sure she had just talked herself out of another job. But then he asked, "What would you do if you discovered I was involved in something questionable?" The question caught Sophia off guard. She looked into his eyes, seeing something deeper there, something that suggested this wasn't just a hypothetical question. "I'd tell you that you're better than whatever you think you have to do, and then I'd help you find a way out of it," Sophia said softly. Gabriel stared at her for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he pressed a button on his desk phone. "Rosa, please prepare an employment contract for Miss Mitchell. She starts Monday." Sophia's mouth fell open. "Really? But I haven't even given you my references, and I just told you I got fired for—" "Miss Mitchell," Gabriel interrupted, standing up. "In my experience, the most dangerous people are the ones who seem perfect. You're honest, observant, and you're not afraid to do the right thing even when it costs you. That's exactly what I need." As Sophia left his office that day, she had no idea that her honesty had just changed both of their lives forever. Sophia's first day at Moretti Enterprises began with her getting trapped in the revolving door for 5 minutes while a growing crowd of employees watched in bewilderment. By the time security freed her, she was dizzy, disheveled, and already 15 minutes late. "Welcome to the team," Rosa said dryly, handing Sophia a temporary keycard. "Try not to break anything important on your first day." Sophia's desk sat directly outside Gabriel's office, a strategic position that she quickly realized came with its own challenges. Every time Gabriel's door opened, she would startle and accidentally knock something over. By lunch, she had already broken a stapler, spilled tea on her keyboard, and somehow managed to jam the printer so badly that the IT department had to be called. "Miss Mitchell." Gabriel appeared in his doorway, looking amused rather than annoyed. "Could you please bring me the Morrison file?" Sophia jumped up eagerly, determined to finally do something right. She located the file quickly, proud of her efficiency, and marched confidently toward his office. What she didn't notice was the small rug that had bunched up near the doorway. Her foot caught the edge and she went flying forward, the Morrison file exploding into a shower of papers that seemed to float in slow motion before settling all over Gabriel's office like confetti. "I'm so sorry." Sophia scrambled to gather the documents, her face burning with embarrassment. "I swear I'm not usually this much of a disaster." "Actually, that's a lie. I am exactly this much of a disaster, but I'm really trying not to be." Gabriel crouched down beside her, helping to collect the scattered papers. "Sophia, breathe. It's just paper." The way he said her name, gentle and patient, made her look up at him. He was closer than she expected, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes, close enough to notice that he smelled like expensive cologne and something uniquely him. "You're not firing me?" she asked quietly. "For dropping papers? Hardly." Gabriel handed her a stack of documents, his fingers brushing hers briefly. "Though I am curious about something. You reorganized these files, didn't you?" Sophia nodded nervously. "The old system didn't make sense. Everything was filed by date instead of priority or client importance. I hope that's okay. I know I should have asked first, but—" "It's brilliant," Gabriel interrupted. "I've been looking for the Patterson contract for weeks. Where did you put it?" Sophia's face lit up. "Third drawer, under active negotiations, high priority. I created subcategories based on deal size and timeline urgency." Gabriel stared at her for a moment, then started laughing. It was a rich, warm sound that Sophia had never heard him from before. "You've been here 6 hours and you've already improved a system my previous assistant spent 2 years creating." Over the following weeks, Sophia's clumsiness became legendary throughout the office. She accidentally sent a lunch order to the wrong restaurant, resulting in 50 pizzas being delivered during an important board meeting. She got lost in the building so often that security started giving her escorts. She once tried to fix a squeaky door and somehow managed to remove it entirely from its hinges. But for every disaster, there was something else. Sophia caught discrepancies in contracts that could have cost thousands. She remembered every client's birthday, their children's names, their favorite coffee orders. She had an uncanny ability to sense when Gabriel was stressed and would quietly handle smaller tasks without being asked. "She's like a tornado," Carlos said to Gabriel one afternoon after Sophia had accidentally triggered the fire alarm while trying to change a light bulb. "But somehow everything ends up better after she's done." Gabriel found himself looking forward to Sophia's daily catastrophes. There was something refreshing about her complete lack of pretense. In a world where everyone was trying to impress him or manipulate him, Sophia was simply herself, chaotic, brilliant, and utterly genuine. He started timing his coffee breaks to coincide with hers, enjoying their conversations about everything from business strategy to her favorite books. Sophia had opinions about everything and wasn't afraid to share them, even when they disagreed with his. "You know," Sophia said one afternoon, perched on the edge of his desk while they reviewed quarterly reports, "you could increase efficiency by 30% if you restructured the project management timeline." "Is that so?" Gabriel leaned back in his chair, enjoying the way her eyes sparkled when she got excited about work. "Absolutely. Look at this." Sophia grabbed a pen and started sketching a flowchart on his notepad, completely absorbed in her explanation. Gabriel watched her work, noting the way she bit her lip when concentrating, the graceful movement of her hands despite her usual clumsiness. Somewhere between the flying papers and the daily disasters, Sophia Mitchell had become the best part of his day. He just didn't realize how much he needed her until she saved his life. The Hoffman Group arrived on a Tuesday morning in November, bringing with them leather briefcases, expensive suits, and promises that seemed too good to be true. Sophia watched from her desk as three men in identical navy blazers swept into the conference room, their confidence filling the space like expensive cologne. Gerald Hoffman, their leader, had silver hair and the kind of smile that never quite reached his eyes. He spoke in smooth, practiced tones about partnership opportunities and mutual benefits, throwing around numbers that made even Gabriel's seasoned business advisors sit up and take notice. $20 million in the first quarter alone, Hoffman was saying as Sophia brought in coffee for the meeting. Our international connections could triple your current market reach within 18 months. Sophia set down the tray carefully, trying not to eavesdrop, but something about Hoffman's tone made her skin crawl. She had learned to trust her instincts about people, and every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong. "The terms seem very generous," Gabriel said, his voice neutral but interested. "Almost too generous." Hoffman laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "We believe in investing in quality partnerships, Mr. Moretti. Your reputation precedes you." After the meeting ended and the Hoffman Group left with promises to return with contracts, Sophia couldn't shake her unease. She tried to focus on her regular tasks, but her mind kept wandering back to Hoffman's cold smile and the way his associates had watched Gabriel like predators sizing up prey. That evening, long after the office had emptied, Sophia made a decision that would change everything. She used her keycard to slip back into the building, her heart pounding as she made her way to her desk. If Gabriel was going to make a deal with these people, she needed to know exactly who they were. Sophia had always been good with computers, a skill she had downplayed during her interview. Now she put that ability to work, diving deep into public records, business filings, and news archives. What she found made her blood run cold. The Hoffman Group had a pattern, and it was devastating. Company after company had partnered with them over the past 5 years. Meridian Industries, once a thriving manufacturing business, had filed for bankruptcy 6 months after signing with Hoffman. Coastal Development, a successful real estate firm, had collapsed within a year of their partnership, with the owners facing fraud charges. Sophia dug deeper, following paper trails and cross-referencing dates. The pattern became clearer with each search. Hoffman would approach successful companies with lucrative partnership offers. The initial deals would seem profitable, drawing the companies deeper into complex financial arrangements. Then, gradually, money would start disappearing. Accounts would be drained. By the time the victims realized what was happening, Hoffman and his associates would vanish, leaving behind nothing but empty bank accounts and ruined lives. "Oh my God," Sophia whispered, staring at her computer screen at 3 in the morning. "They're not partners. They're parasites." She printed everything she could find, building a file of evidence that painted a clear picture of the Hoffman Group's criminal enterprise. Financial records, newspaper articles about bankruptcies, even a few police reports from companies that had tried to press charges, only to find that the Hoffman Group had covered their tracks too well. The most chilling discovery came when Sophia found a Business Journal article from 2 years ago. It featured a photo of Gerald Hoffman at a charity gala, smiling beside the CEO of Pinnacle Construction, a company that had gone under just months after the photo was taken. The CEO had lost everything, including his family home. The article mentioned that he had suffered a heart attack from the stress and died 6 months later. Sophia's hands shook as she read the details. These weren't just financial crimes. People's lives were being destroyed. Families were losing everything they had worked for. And now they had Gabriel in their sights. She thought about Gabriel's genuine smile when he talked about legitimizing his business completely, his pride in building something honest and lasting. The Hoffman Group would destroy all of that, and probably destroy Gabriel in the process. Sophia gathered all her evidence into a folder, her mind racing with plans. She couldn't just tell Gabriel outright. He might think she was overstepping her bounds or being paranoid. But she also couldn't let him walk into this trap blindly. As dawn broke over the city, Sophia finally left the office, exhausted but determined. The contract signing was scheduled for Friday afternoon. She had 3 days to figure out how to save Gabriel from making the biggest mistake of his life. She hadn't expected that saving him would require literally throwing herself at him. But sometimes, Sophia thought, as she watched the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold, the most desperate situations called for the most desperate measures. Friday afternoon arrived with the weight of impending doom. Sophia sat at her desk, the folder of evidence hidden in her bottom drawer, watching as the Hoffman Group's black sedan pulled up to the building. Her palms were sweaty, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. Gabriel emerged from his office looking confident and composed, straightening his tie as he prepared for what he believed would be a profitable partnership. Sophia's stomach twisted as she watched him, knowing what awaited him in that conference room. "Sophia, could you bring the contracts to conference room A in 10 minutes?" Gabriel asked, his voice warm with the easy familiarity they had developed over the past months. "Of course," Sophia managed, her voice barely steady. She watched him walk away, his shoulders straight with anticipation, and felt her resolve crystallize into something sharp and desperate. The conference room buzzed with energy when Sophia entered carrying the leather portfolio containing the contracts. Gabriel sat at the head of the polished table, flanked by Rosa and 2 other advisors. Across from them, Gerald Hoffman and his associates projected an aura of barely contained excitement, like wolves circling wounded prey. "Ah, perfect timing," Hoffman said, his cold smile widening as Sophia set the portfolio down. "I believe we're ready to make history, Mr. Moretti." Sophia retreated to the corner of the room, officially there to take notes, but really there to watch for her moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her pen, the evidence folder burning in her mind like a secret fire. Gabriel opened the portfolio with ceremonial care, the contracts crisp and white against the dark wood of the table. Sophia could see the signature lines clearly from where she stood, could see Gabriel's expensive pen poised and ready. "This partnership will revolutionize both our companies," Hoffman continued, his voice hypnotic with false sincerity. "20 million in the first quarter, international expansion, unlimited growth potential." Gabriel nodded, scanning the final page one last time. Sophia watched his face, seeing the moment when he made his decision, when his pen moved toward the paper with decisive intent. Time slowed to a crawl. Sophia saw Gabriel's hand descending, saw the pen tip approaching the signature line, saw Hoffman's eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. In that crystalline moment, she realized that subtle warnings and careful suggestions wouldn't work. Gabriel was seconds away from signing his life away, and desperate times called for desperate measures. Sophia launched herself forward, her chair clattering backward as she stumbled deliberately over her own feet. She crashed into Gabriel with the full force of her momentum, her coffee mug flying from her hand to splash across the pristine contracts. Papers exploded into the air like startled birds, floating and spinning before settling across the conference room floor. "Oh no!" Sophia gasped, finding herself pressed against Gabriel's chest, her hands gripping his shoulders for balance. She could feel his heart beating beneath his shirt, could smell his cologne mixed with the sharp scent of spilled coffee. "I'm so clumsy. I'm so sorry." But even as she apologized loudly for the benefit of their audience, Sophia leaned closer to Gabriel's ear, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper that only he could hear. "It's a trap. Don't sign."
Gabriel's body went rigid beneath her hands, his eyes locked with hers, and in that moment, Sophia saw understanding flash across his features. Not just understanding of her words, but recognition of something deeper. The realization that this clumsy, chaotic woman had just risked everything to save him. The connection between them was electric, immediate, and overwhelming. Sophia felt as though she was drowning in the intensity of Gabriel's gaze, in the way his hands had instinctively moved to steady her when she fell against him. Time seemed suspended as they stared at each other, the rest of the room fading into background noise. "Mr. Moretti," Hoffman's voice cut through the moment like a blade, sharp with barely controlled irritation. "Perhaps we could have your secretary clean up this mess so we can proceed with the signing." Gabriel's hands were still on Sophia's, still holding her steady, but his eyes never left hers. She could see him processing her warning, weighing it against everything he thought he knew about the deal. "Actually," Gabriel said slowly, his voice carrying a new edge that made Sophia's breath catch, "I think we need to postpone this meeting." Hoffman's smile faltered for the first time since Sophia had met him. "Postpone? But, Mr. Moretti, surely a little spilled coffee isn't reason to delay such an important—" "I said postpone," Gabriel repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Sophia remained pressed against him, her heart racing with relief and something else entirely, something that felt dangerously like hope.
The silence in the conference room stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Hoffman's face had transformed from confident charm to barely concealed fury, his pale eyes darting between Gabriel and Sophia with calculating intensity. "Mr. Moretti," Hoffman said, his voice tight with forced politeness, "surely we can reschedule for later today. These contracts represent months of negotiation. My investors are expecting—" "Your investors will have to wait," Gabriel interrupted, helping Sophia to her feet but keeping one protective hand on her back. "Something has come to my attention that requires immediate investigation." Sophia felt Gabriel's touch like electricity through her blouse. She straightened, brushing coffee stains from her skirt, and made a decision that would either save them both or destroy her career forever. "Actually," Sophia said, her voice stronger than she felt, "I have something Mr. Moretti needs to see." She walked to the door on unsteady legs, acutely aware of every eye in the room following her movement. When she returned with the evidence folder, Hoffman's face had gone completely white. "What is that?" Hoffman demanded, rising from his chair. Sophia placed the folder in front of Gabriel, her fingers trembling slightly. 3 days of research into the Hoffman Group's business practices. Gabriel opened the folder, and Sophia watched his expression change as he scanned the first page. His jaw tightened, his eyes growing cold and dangerous in a way that reminded Sophia exactly who she was dealing with. "Meridian Industries, bankrupt 6 months after partnering with you. Coastal Development, collapsed within a year. Pinnacle Construction." He looked up at Hoffman, and Sophia shivered at the menace in his gaze. "The CEO died of a heart attack after losing everything." "Those are unfortunate coincidences," Hoffman said quickly, but sweat had appeared on his forehead. "Business partnerships always carry risks." 15 companies, Gabriel continued, flipping through Sophia's meticulously organized evidence. 15 successful businesses that partnered with you and ended up destroyed. That's not coincidence, Hoffman. That's a pattern. Rosa leaned forward, studying the documents with sharp eyes. "These financial records show systematic fund transfers just before each company's collapse, money flowing from their accounts into offshore holdings registered to shell companies." "You are parasites," Sophia said, her voice ringing with disgust. "You target successful businesses, drain them dry, then disappear before anyone can stop you." Hoffman's mask finally slipped completely. "You have no idea what you're interfering with, little girl. This deal is happening whether you like it or not." The threat in his voice made Gabriel stand slowly, his movement predatory and controlled. Sophia had seen Gabriel be charming, professional, even gentle. She had never seen him truly dangerous until this moment. "Are you threatening my secretary?" Gabriel asked, his voice soft as silk and twice as deadly. "I'm stating facts," but he took an involuntary step backward. "We have contracts, agreements, legal obligations." "You have nothing," Gabriel said, moving around the table with fluid grace, "because I'm not signing anything. In fact, I think it's time you left my building." "You're making a mistake, Moretti," one of Hoffman's associates spoke up. "We have connections, resources. You don't want us as enemies." Gabriel smiled, and Sophia felt her blood turn to ice at the expression. This wasn't the warm smile she had grown to love. This was something altogether more frightening. "Gentlemen," Gabriel said pleasantly, "I think you're confused who you're dealing with. Let me clarify something for you." He moved closer to Hoffman, close enough that Sophia could see the other man fighting not to flinch. "I built this empire from nothing, and I've dealt with much more dangerous people than you. If you ever come near my business or my people again, you'll discover exactly why my family name carries the weight it does in this city." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Hoffman gathered his remaining dignity and headed for the door, his associates scrambling to follow. "This isn't over," Hoffman snarled from the doorway. "Yes," Gabriel said quietly, "it is." After they left, the conference room fell silent except for the sound of Sophia's rapid breathing. Gabriel turned to Sophia, his expression softening back into something recognizable. "Sophia, you saved my life." Before she could respond, before she could think about propriety or professional boundaries, Sophia threw her arms around Gabriel's neck. The relief, the fear, the overwhelming gratitude all crashed over her at once. "I was so scared. I thought they were going to destroy everything you've worked for." Gabriel's arms came around her, holding her tight against his chest. "You brilliant, brave, impossible woman," he murmured into her hair. When they finally pulled apart, something fundamental had shifted between them. Sophia could see it in Gabriel's eyes, could feel it in the way his hands lingered on her face. "Sophia, I think we need to talk," he said softly.
6 months later, Sophia stood in the executive boardroom of Moretti Enterprises, no longer the clumsy secretary who had stumbled through these halls. Her tailored navy suit spoke of confidence and authority, her hair pulled back in an elegant style that commanded respect. The nameplate on the conference table read Sophia Mitchell, Chief Operations Officer, but everyone in the company knew her real title. Gabriel's right hand, his most trusted advisor, his equal in every way that mattered. "The quarterly reports show a 38% increase in revenue," Sophia announced to the board of directors, her voice steady and professional. "Our new partnership with Castellano Development has exceeded all projections." Gabriel watched her from his seat at the head of the table, pride radiating from every line of his body. The transformation had been remarkable, but not because Sophia had changed fundamentally. She was still the same brilliant, fearless woman who had crashed into his life. The difference was that now everyone else could see what Gabriel had recognized from the beginning. After the meeting ended and the board members filed out, Gabriel and Sophia found themselves alone in the conference room where their story had truly begun. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden patterns across the polished table where contracts had once scattered like fallen leaves. "Remember when you used to spill coffee in here every other day?" Gabriel asked, moving to stand beside her at the window. Sophia laughed, the sound warm and familiar. "I still can't believe you promoted me after I literally tackled you during a business meeting." "Best decision I ever made," Gabriel said, his voice soft with affection. "Though I have to admit I was already half in love with you before that day." Sophia turned to face him, her green eyes sparkling with mischief. "Only half?" "Well, the other half fell when you hugged me afterward," Gabriel admitted, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'd never had anyone risk everything just to protect me."
The months following the Hoffman incident had been a whirlwind of change. The FBI had used Sophia's evidence to build a case against the Hoffman Group, ultimately shutting down their operation and recovering millions of dollars for their victims. Gabriel had testified at the trial, his reputation not only intact but enhanced by his cooperation with law enforcement. More importantly, the crisis had forced Gabriel to confront his feelings for Sophia. He had promoted her immediately, recognizing that her intelligence and instincts were exactly what his company needed. But the professional relationship had quickly evolved into something deeper, something neither of them could ignore. "I have something for you," Gabriel said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "If it's another contract to review, I'm officially off duty for the weekend." Gabriel's smile was mysterious as he pulled out a small velvet box. Sophia's breath caught in her throat, her heart beginning to race in a way that had nothing to do with business crises or corporate emergencies. "Gabriel," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. "Sophia Mitchell," Gabriel said, dropping to one knee in the same conference room where she had saved his life. "You crashed into my world like a beautiful disaster and turned everything upside down. You saw through my defenses, challenged my decisions, and somehow made me want to be better than I ever thought possible." Sophia's hands flew to her mouth, tears already beginning to blur her vision. "You're brilliant, brave, and completely impossible," Gabriel continued, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring that caught the afternoon light like captured starfire. "You make me laugh every day, you keep me honest, and you love me despite knowing exactly who I am and where I come from." "Gabriel," Sophia breathed, but he wasn't finished. "I know I'm not easy to love. I know my past is complicated and my family history is darker than most people could handle. But you've never flinched, never judged, never asked me to be anything other than myself." Gabriel's voice grew thick with emotion. "You saved my business, but more than that, you saved me. You showed me what it means to have someone who will fight for you, who will risk everything to protect what matters." Sophia was crying openly now, her professional composure completely abandoned in favor of pure, overwhelming joy. "So, I'm asking you, Sophia Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you be my partner in everything, not just business, but life? Will you let me spend the rest of my days trying to deserve the incredible woman who literally fell into my arms?" "Yes," Sophia sobbed, dropping to her knees to meet him at eye level. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and promises of forever. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and smiling and holding each other like they never wanted to let go. "I love you," Sophia whispered against his lips. "I love your complicated past and your dangerous family and your terrible habit of working too late. I love that you saw something in me when I couldn't even see it myself." "I love you too," Gabriel murmured back. "My beautiful disaster, my brilliant chaos, my everything." 1 year later, Sophia walked down the aisle of St. Catherine's Cathedral in a dress that made her look like a princess from a fairy tale. Gabriel waited for her at the altar, his eyes bright with unshed tears as he watched the clumsy secretary who had become his salvation approach to become his wife. As they exchanged vows, promising to love and protect each other through whatever storms might come, Sophia couldn't help but smile at the memory of that first disastrous interview. She had stumbled into Gabriel's office looking for a job and somehow found her soulmate instead. Sometimes the best things in life really did begin with falling down.